Don't go out with hearing people? That's funny. I can't read, miss.
You're too smart for that man.
Deaf people don't need your saving or your pity.
I love you.
This is exciting to have Missing Movies talking to you, Zeinabu. Very, very exciting to have seen your film Compensation. Uh, it looked incredible. First of all, the restoration was fabulous.
Thank
Um,
you.
and the story, the acting. I just love the whole thing. I love the way you went from intercutting between 1910 and, well, 1999, what was then present day.
Right.
It
Yeah.
worked so well, and the actors were amazing. Uh, and we could talk about the film, but Missing Movies is really concerned about the missing aspect of a film like this. Like, when I watch it now, and I'm sure people who will be watching this in Criterion, and people are going to theaters now are saying, well, wait, how, how did this happen? How did, you know, where was this movie all this time? Um, but what I'd love to do is have you tell us a little bit about the the making of the film a little bit, but also then about the release, where uh, where it premiered and all that. So if you could just tell us, you made this in 1999. Did you shoot in 98?
No, no, actually, Rich, it's a little bit embarrassing to talk about it because my brother, who's in the film, is always razzing me about it, which
Oh,
my brother plays the character. My brother Kevin Davis plays the character of the Tyrone in the contemporary part of
okay.
the film. And so he's always razzing me about it. I waited 31 years for you to get this movie in the movie theater. I was like, okay. So we shot in 1993, but I didn't
Oh, okay.
finish the film until 1999.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that. Okay. Well,
Okay.
so when you finally then got it finished, where was the premiere, and tell us a little bit about the reception that the
Okay.
film got.
Okay, well, first, I just want to fill out the little part at the beginning. Compensation was shot in Chicago in 1993. I was a professor at Northwestern University at that time. So I used my students from UC, from my students from Northwestern to make the film, as well as Chicago area professionals, and then folks who I went to film school with at UCLA Film School. I'm part of the LA Rebellion group
Right.
of filmmakers. So we made the film in '93, and Mark Arthur Cherry, who's my husband, who wrote the screenplay, originally wrote it as a 28-page script. And so once we finished shooting the film and realized, it's longer than 28 minutes. It's going to be longer than 28 minutes. And then we knew we wanted to have the historical photographs in the period section. So that research is what took a lot of the time because I had to teach during the school year.
Mm.
The summers is when I would go to the archives in Chicago, uh, excuse me, Chicago Historical Society, or Schaumburg in New York, or
Hmm.
the Library of Congress and the National Archives. So I would do like all these different trips going back and forth.
I see.
And so that took time. And then we also um, expanded the contemporary part to have more story in it. So actually the part when John Earl Jelks is walking as Nico going to the church to take the class is actually
Hmm.
the middle of winter because you don't see the ground. It's just him walking. It's just
Okay.
snow on the ground. We shot in July 1993, but I probably shot those sequences with him.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and to fill out the contemporary section of the story, I probably shot those in like December of 1996.
Got
So
it.
it was a while in between. It was a while in
So
between.
now, just curious, um, so, but, and by the way, Nancy and I were watching, and I thought the use of the photographs was brilliant in the way it just set the tone and the mood for the early part of the story. Um, was that in the original concept to do
Yes.
that? It was. Okay.
Yes, it was an
Okay.
original concept to do that. Yes. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I always want because I wanted it to mimic a silent film.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take like what I was an independent filmmaker. I didn't have money. I couldn't shoot on the streets of Chicago in
Of course.
1990s and make it look like it was 1910. So
Right.
the way to do that for me was to do use for archival photographs and to take that time in the
Mm,
very beginning of the film so that it immerses you hopefully with the ragtime music by Reginald
totally.
and
Yep.
really kind of just get into the like the geographic headspace of the film, I guess I would
Yeah,
say.
but I'm gonna come back to those photos now
Okay.
that you brought that up. But so after all these years, you finally get the film finished. It's 1999. It was at Toronto in 99?
No, the film actually did premiere at Toronto first in September, and then we were at Sundance in
Right.
February 2000.
In
So,
2000, right.
yeah, so it was in dramatic competition at 2000.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, distributors were running out the door. The
Yeah.
fact that we had the first 15 minutes of the film with no spoken dialogue was like, what? What is this? And they just didn't,
Wow.
they didn't get it. They didn't understand or they didn't care to understand or kind of like be immersed in the film. So we didn't get very much we didn't get any bites for theatrical distribution. We were lucky
No.
enough that Roger Ebert supported the film and wrote a nice review that we were able to use for non-theatrical distribution. But yeah, theatrical
Wow.
distribution basically eluded the film for
What was the distribution on the non-theatrical side? What happened to the movie?
basically we went with my longtime non-theatrical distribution source, which was Women Make Movies in New York.
Right.
So the film was carried along with my other film cycles, Mother River,
Good for them.
so on and so forth. They're all there. So it would go, you could see it like at film festivals or art museums or museums. And then
Hmm.
sometimes it would occasionally show up um, uh, on cable, like it was on the Sundance Channel after Sundance Film Festival was over.
Okay.
So, but and it's occasionally been on Turner Broadcast, like when they do the
Oh, the
in-
TCM?
TCM, excuse me, yeah, TCM,
Yeah.
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 It's been
Okay.
it has been broadcast a few times on TCM.
There's basically two categories, the rights and the materials.
Right.
So you've always had the rights. You've always held on to those rights. You licensed it to Women Make Movies or
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of like the difference for me when I came out of film school, I didn't have the opportunity to actually like stay a full-time filmmaker. I had
Right.
so much debt
Yeah.
that I had to have a job.
Right.
And so teaching on the university level was like the thing that I could do
Right.
actually still stay in the game as an independent filmmaker, but also
Mm,
pay back those student loans
yeah, yeah.
for so long. So I think being an academic in some ways helped me because I already knew the importance of like holding on to the materials and like making sure that they were stored properly. Like,
And where were they stored? Because I read that the restoration was from the 16 negative.
yep. Hmm.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. We
What?
had I cut those A and B rolls.
I'm not. You cut them up. You're not giving those up. Where were they
No.
stored?
Well, the A and B rolls were stored at Alpha Cine for a long time because that's where we developed the film
Right.
because it was black and white 16, so it wasn't too many places that could do uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
16 black and white, even as far back as the 90s. It was
Sure.
basically Duart or Alpha Cine. So they were at Alpha Cine, but then once Alpha Cine closed, then
Mhm.
we got them to be moved over to the UCLA Film and Television Archive. And
Great.
some of my work is at the Academy and Motion Picture Arts, and then some was at UCLA, but the majority of the work, the original materials is mostly at
Was it UCLA?
UCLA.
And the soundtrack was from the original DATs?
I had those dads, yes.
Wow. Amazing.
I
That's
was
really,
so excited when we could actually pull from the dads and not for those doggone mag
yeah.
16
Wow.
millimeter mag. No, I had the DATs. The DATs
Wow.
sitting in my office at UCSD, where I now teach
Amazing.
for the last 25 years. So I
I
always had those masters, but it's like after a while, like who has a DAT player that can play these things back? So it was like legacy material, but
right.
thankfully Crest had the facilities. So we were able to just go straight from the DAT, and I was just like extremely grateful because there's
Um,
stereo in 16,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, 16 is mono and it's optical. And I
Right.
spent I had spent months working on the sound because that's my things. Like I really wanted to be a sound
Hmm.
artist when I came out of school, but I couldn't find enough work.
Uh-huh.
So, but sound is my baby, and like I spent like 3 months doing this sound design and sound editing for compensation at a place called Maestromatic in
Mm.
Chicago. And I was just really fortunate because the guys were like experimental filmmakers and experimental music people. So they were like kind of into like what I was trying to do with trying to
Hmm.
the sound more evocative of what a a deaf person's
Right.
experience with sounds would be like, and then
Right.
playing with all kinds of different things. We put mics with condoms on them under the water and swished them around so we could
Amazing.
like create soundtrack. I had so much fun with those guys, but it was like, I had to work after hours. I had to work between 6 and 1 a.m. because
Well, yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't have the big bucks to pay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Wow.
yeah, but so that's why I'm really um I know it's a restoration, but I don't call it a restoration. I actually call it a rejuvenation.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason why I call it a rejuvenation is because restoration implies that you brought it back to its original quality.
Right.
With this process and being involved with this process for the last year and a half more concentrated on it,
Hmm.
mm, I really have done a rejuvenation, meaning I'm making it better
Yeah.
than the actual original because that 4K, there's like stuff that we had in the 16 negative that you can finally see
Hmm.
in the new version of it. And then we also with the visuals, we also were able to go in a little bit closer on the photograph. So much so that people who've seen the film before keep asking me, "Did you edit?" I was like, no, I'm a filmmaker. Once you cut, you cut. You don't edit again. You cut. That's it. Done.
That's it. Done. Right. That's right.
But what we were able to do was like zoom in very slightly
Hmm.
in the remastering and just like clear up the stuff in the historical photographs. So there is a lot more clarity. and
Wow.
the photographs than there was before. And then the sound was like at some point in the film, I had like 24 tracks of sound going with the depression montage for the contemporary characters, and I was able to actually have it sound the way I wanted it to sound because we
Amazing.
could do it across, the speakers and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
then the captioning could be more inclusive and immersive.
Mm-hmm.
When I always felt bad because I love Michelle Angela Banks, my lead actress, and I did caption the film as much of the dialogue as I could when we were making the film,
Right.
but she would always be left out because she wouldn't know what the music, she wouldn't know what the sound effects were when
Right.
the film was going on. So it was always like, dang, I wish I could do something more. But the technology didn't exist in 1999 for me to be able to do that. We still
Yep.
had to do 2 lines, 31 characters, you know,
Right.
another role to go in with with an answer
Yeah.
release print. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, with the captioning, and I worked with another hard of hearing filmmaker, Allison O'Daniel, who's the director of Tuba Thieves. She and I
Mm-hmm.
worked really hard to adapt some of the captioning, like sensibilities and techniques that she did with her film. We adapted those to compensation, and the trick was to like do those do that kind of work, but to not to not overdo it because
Mm-hmm.
already a lot of reading and compensation because you got to read intertitles because that's
Sure.
how
Yeah.
the film was.
Yep. Yep.
But it was like, okay, and then I didn't want to mess with Pierre Desir, the cinematographer. So I didn't want to mess with his
Mm-hmm.
compositions, because
Yeah.
he passed away, but he would come down and kick me in the butt
Right.
if I mess with his work too much. So I was like,
Right.
okay, so, but we were able to work together and assembled a team, of folks, some of my former students, some current students, Nicoletta Evangelisti, who you met, and then
Mm-hmm.
Alexis Height, and my husband, Mark Cherry, and my 2 daughters actually helped to
Um,
work on the film too, because my
gr-
oldest daughter, Mazi Cherry, is she just graduated from Mills and she has a degree in music and environmental studies. And
oh,
then
nice.
her friend Sade were able to help me like figure out how I could translate the music so it wouldn't be like really long piece discussing what the music was,
Mm-hmm.
and like short and like
Right.
comprehensive so it would give you an idea of what was going on, but it wouldn't tell you how to feel or think.
Right.
That was what
Right.
the trick was. That was
Right.
what the trick
Right.
was. Yeah. So
Well,
I
it sounds, it sounds like the best of, I mean, first of all, I gotta say, from missing movie standpoint, you're a model citizen. You knew all your, you knew what all the rights were. You knew you had all the materials, the original materials. I mean, I still don't know where my original negative was for Household Saints. And this is a story that's actually very common. I mean,
yeah.
that Stop Making Sense, the Jonathan Demme film.
Yeah. What?
They restored that from an IP.
Oh,
They don't know where the negative is. So it's kind of amazing, you know.
wow.
Uh, it's a testament to somehow, being an independent filmmaker, and you didn't have I mean, you did have a choice, but the choice you made was to really make sure you knew where everything was. And I think you're right. You said it earlier, that academic background gave you actually a leg up on most of us who were too busy worrying about, oh, how do I make the next film? What do I do? And
Yeah.
everything that in the past is just out the window, or not out the window, but you just can't, you don't have the bandwidth to think about it, you know?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Um, so,
Exactly.
so that's really great. And when you license those photos, let's go back to those photos. When you license those photos, you license them forever and ever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for
Because
in
at that time,
perpetuity, right?
yeah, because at that time, we didn't have the internet. So like I said, I had to physically go. And
Mm-hmm.
I would purchase, the rights for $60 or $40. I think the most I paid for one photo was maybe 150.
Wow.
but that gave me the right to like reuse it and put it
Right,
in film.
right, right. And so
Per-
you
yeah,
had all those rights, and you knew you basically had all the underlying rights for the materials. Because again, this is something else that holds up a lot of films from being re-released. And sometimes even when you've done the right thing, a distributor is asking you to prove it.
yeah,
Prove.
right, right,
And if you can't, you're stuck. So
right. Yeah,
so that's amazing. That's
yeah.
really a great story.
Yeah, I mean the one, and then the like our music saved us because I really did want to use. There is a song by Nina Simone,
Hmm.
"Compensation," the poem by Paul Ernst Dunbar. It's beautiful,
Hmm.
um, but I knew I could not afford those rights
Yeah.
uh, for that song. It's just like, and for me, that would have been like the same amount of like a shoot day or more uh,
Sure.
to obtain those rights. So what I did was kind of have someone do something close to, but not exactly the same
Hmm.
her rights. And it's one of the actresses who's in the film, Jean Garrison, did
That's
the
great.
compensation song for me. And then Reginald Robinson, the ragtime composer, was the one who did the music. So the two of them worked on it together and
That's
created
great.
something that specifically for the film.
That's
So
great.
that worked out in my favor tremendously. And it's always good to like use original music when you can.
Yeah.
I was grateful that I just had such great resources in Chicago to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it sounds like the restoration was also a great process because you didn't mess with the integrity of the original film, but you actually enhanced it. You actually were able to do things now that you weren't able to do
exactly.
then.
Exactly. I want filmmakers to know that, that there's some things that you can do better that you couldn't do then,
Yeah.
that will actually help the film. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful that exists because I mean, I'm glad we shot on film, and I probably, if I ever had an opportunity to do it again, I would shoot
Mm,
on film, but then I would still transfer back to,
right.
whatever
Right.
digital stuff.
Right.
Film lasts. We know film lasts.
When we were working, when you made a film on 16 or 35, you the materials to store the materials, it was a huge amount of stuff, and you couldn't
Yeah,
possibly keep it in, you couldn't keep it in your house. So maybe if
right,
you could, if you
right,
had if you had a garage big enough, but
right.
you
Yeah,
you had to have it elsewhere. Now you can, with the technology, you can save these things, but you still have to do it in the right way, and you have to
right.
make sure you're booting up those drives. You've got to make sure that the drives are stored in the right place and that there are multiple locations.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
thank you, because I'm going to teach my students about LTOs. I'm going to give them your website. Make sure
yeah,
they know how to
we're in the
do.
that's
So,
great. We're in the process of and it's hard. I understand. It's hard to get filmmakers to, you know, pay attention to preservation. I mean, no one's
right.
thinking about that.
Yeah,
But so the question we always ask is, well, will anyone be able to see your work 20 years from now?
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
for films that didn't get the release they deserved, like compensation, to be able to have that material so that you can do it now. It's so awesome that it's screening in theaters.
Thank you.
Um, what's it feel like now to have that movie out there again and having people see it?
Validating. Validating. It was like all those years of like being kind of depressed and like angry that it wasn't able to be in the theaters the way I wanted it to. It got the designation of being a National Film Registry piece in December this year, and then I'm able to go on this, like tour with the film when it's playing in different places, New York, Chicago, Ohio, even Toronto. So I'm like, wow, it's like I'm grateful because I know this doesn't happen for everybody. So I'm extremely grateful and I'm extremely proud of my team and my community for supporting me through all these years, and Women Make Movies and everybody else to like just keep the thing going, because it could have
Yeah.
just, you know, done nowhere. And then, you know, my actors, they're still acting. They believe I'm about to make another film with them. So I'm like,
Great.
yes.
And I'm thrilled that there's a, because a lot of times Missing Movies deals in, oh, the film is lost, we can't find it, we don't know where the rights are.
Mhm.
This is a complete success story, because you you hung with it, you knew where everything, you knew where everything was, and you know, you were ahead of the rest of the world. You just had to wait for everybody to catch up. So
Yeah.
so congratulations,
Thank you,
and
Rich.
thank
Thank
you
you
for
so much.
sharing some time with me. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
All
All
right.
right. You know, continued success. Look forward
Thank you.
to more.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.